Welcome to the layer-by-layer overview of Psalm 132. A way to remember this psalm is with the phrase, David's house, the Lord's house, which highlights the Hebrew play on words between the Lord's house, meaning his temple, and David's house, meaning his dynasty. Both were built up. The Lord's house is built literally, while David's house is built figuratively, meaning that he would have descendants who would rule after him. This psalm is a prayer for blessing upon Zion, in accordance with the promises made by the Lord in his covenant with David. David's faithfulness to his own vow, to find a place for the Lord to dwell, is used to argue that the Lord should now be equally faithful to his own vow, to richly bless Zion. This psalm is structured into two sections, David's vow in verses 1 to 9, and then the Lord's vow in verses 10 to 18. In the section about David's vow, there are two subsections. First, the call to remember all David endured as he sought to fulfill the vow, and second, the actual fulfillment of the vow. The section on the Lord's vow is split into three subsections. First, the request to not refuse to keep the vow made long ago to David. Second, the vow to richly bless Zion. And third, the vow to ensure the prosperity of David's dynasty within Zion. The bolded words show the strongest connections. When the psalm asks God to remember David's vow, what that means is not refusing to fulfill the Lord's own vow, which is shown in the bright blue as the most important part of the psalm. In other words, just as David did what he promised, Lord, do what you promised, richly bless Zion. The emotional tone of a psalm is important for its accurate interpretation, so we'll look at that now. The tone of the section about David's vow is confident and insistent, as the song recounts the righteousness of how David first vowed to find a place for the Lord's house and then fulfilled it. The tone of the section concerning the Lord's vow remains confident, with a strong desire evident in the Lord's choice of Zion. Now that we have the structure of the whole psalm in mind, let's look at the details verse by verse. Superscription, a song of ascents. We understand the songs of ascents to be ancient pilgrimage songs, sung while the people of Israel ascended to Zion, another name for Jerusalem, for religious festivals. The role of Zion in this psalm is therefore central, as the people would physically approach the city and the temple. David's vow. The vow starts with focusing on how much David sacrificed in order to fulfill his vow. His sacrifice is described extensively to make for a strong argument that just as David did everything necessary to fulfill his vow, so the Lord should also do everything necessary to fulfill his vow. Verse 1. Remember, Lord, for David's sake, everything that he endured. To remember in Hebrew is usually not the opposite of to forget. It means rather to take action based on already known information. The verb, especially when the Lord is the subject here, has strong covenantal overtones. The song calls upon the Lord to take action in accordance with his covenant relationship with David. All David endured speaks to his extensive preparations for the temple, as mentioned in 1 Chronicles 22, which speaks of the afflictions or great pains David took, providing vast quantities of money and resources for the temple. The point is that David sacrificed his wealth and resources greatly for the sake of the Lord's house, the temple. This sets a precedent on which the song will draw heavily. Verse 2. He who swore to the Lord, who vowed to the mighty one of Jacob. The pains David took to prepare for the temple are noteworthy because they were taken in order to fulfill a vow he made to the Lord, to the mighty God who first chose Jacob and renamed him Israel. Verses 3 and 4. I will not go into the dwelling place which is my house, or go up onto the bed which is my couch, or give sleep to my eyes, or slumber to my eyelids. The first half of this vow is expressed in hyperbole, meaning, I vow to make it my single-minded focus. The extent of this hyperbole intensifies the emotions and underscores the exclusivity of this vow. Nothing whatsoever should distract from its fulfillment. Verse 5. Before I find a place for the Lord, a dwelling place for the mighty one of Jacob. The single-minded focus was to find a place for the Lord, meaning to prepare for the temple that would eventually be built. Customary theology of the time expected that if a god granted a victory and established him securely over his people, it was the king's responsibility to build a temple to that god. As recounted in 2 Samuel 7, David sought to do so, but received a most unexpected message. Instead of receiving permission for David to build a house or temple for the Lord, it was the Lord who would build a house or dynasty or ongoing kingdom for David. But since David was a man of war, God would not permit him to be the person to build the actual temple. David's response seems to have been a wholehearted devotion to prepare for the building of the temple which his son would one day build. Vow fulfilled. Now there is a sort of reenactment to depict the fulfillment of the vow. The text shifts to a new perspective. The people of Israel have recently discovered the ark, recovered from its wanderings in the land of the Philistines. The ark symbolized the Lord's presence, so any attempt to provide a dwelling place for the Lord would mean practically a physical location in which to house the ark. Verse 6. Look, we heard about it in Ephrathah. We found it in the fields of Jar. Ephrathah is the region where the ark was kept for some 20 years, in the fields about the city of Kiriath Jearim, which is what Jar refers to. Verse 7. Let us go to his dwelling place. Let us bow down toward his footstool. With the ark found, it becomes possible to worship the Lord in his dwelling place. The voice of the excited crowd expresses the desire to come to the place of the temple and worship the Lord as he required, but as was only possible when his permanent resting place had been chosen. The ark was considered the footstool of the Lord's invisible throne, and to speak of bowing down to the footstool, or ark, was a respectful way of referring to bowing down to the Lord. Because David had kept his vow, it enabled the people to worship the Lord properly. They anticipate that worship here. Verse 8. Set out, Lord, to your resting place, you and your strong ark. With a place chosen and the ark found, the next step is to parade the ark to Jerusalem with all appropriate earnestness. The song calls the Lord to process along with his ark to the newly chosen resting place. The historical event of the ark returning from the Philistines serves as a reminder of inadequate preparation and care on the part of the Israelites when several people died from Beth Shemesh. This song strives for a formality and reverence that properly respect the ark. Verse 9. May your priests be clothed with righteousness, and may your faithful ones sing for joy. The necessary accompaniment for the ark is priests clothed with righteousness, meaning priests who perform their duties in righteousness, in this way mediating salvation to the Lord's people. The Lord's vow. David's vow has now been finished. It serves as the model of a fulfilled vow that the song calls on God to imitate. Just as David made his vow and fulfilled it with single-minded purpose, in the same way, they also call upon the Lord to fulfill his own vow with the same single-minded purpose. This vow begins with a direct connection to David and implores the Lord to be quick to respond for his sake. Verse 10, "For the sake of David, your servant, do not refuse your anointed one." The pilgrims to Jerusalem now speak, addressing the Lord on behalf of the Israelite community. They cry out, "In honor of your servant, David, do not fail to keep your promise to your anointed one, his descendant, who is now heir of the covenant with David." It is not likely that this verse means that the anointed one, who would be the current king or member of the Davidic line, was making a specific request that might be refused. Instead, the request is likely a general appeal to fulfill all the glorious promises given to David. Verse 11, "The Lord swore to David in sincerity, he will not turn back from it. Someone from your offspring I will place on your throne." This is the first of the Lord's promises. The Lord spoke to David solemnly, meaning an unbreakable oath. It is your own offspring who will reign in your place. In the ancient world, the ideal life included both prosperity while living and ongoing prosperity for one's family line. The Lord here promised David not only ongoing prosperity, but also the role of king for his offspring. This reference to offspring on the throne is one of the promises that the Lord made to David. There may have been a Davidic king on the throne at the time this psalm was composed, so this may have been a promise already fulfilled. When the song was sung in exile, however, it would have become a way for the people to mourn the loss of their king and ask God to restore the kingdom. Verse 12, "If your descendants keep my covenant and my laws that I will teach them, then their descendants will also forever sit on your throne." The promise was not just made to David. It extended to every member of his line who would keep God's covenant and laws. This, of course, was why the covenant and laws were always so central. They were the means for keeping the throne, for living within the covenant blessings. The pilgrimage is approaching Zion, which takes center stage until the end of the psalm. Everything in the psalm centers around Zion and its role within the covenant. Verse 13, "For the Lord had chosen Zion. He had desired her as his dwelling place." Zion was special for one reason. The Lord chose it as the place where he would dwell. His dwelling place meant the place where heaven and earth would meet. It was where the King of Heaven would meet with the people of earth in a covenantal relationship. It was the place where his people would bless and worship him, keeping his laws, and where he, in turn, would bless his people. Zion is the physical reminder of all God had done and all he still promised to do. Verse 14, "This is my resting place forever. Here I will dwell, because I have desired her." God's desire remains within Zion, which the pilgrims could likely see by this point. As they approached, they would sing of God's attachment and future plans for this beloved city. The song would stir the hearts of the pilgrims toward their God and his covenant, and toward taking their own part within the covenant in faithful worship. Despite difficult times, this was a constant reminder that Zion was not merely the location of past glories, but it was the place the Lord chose to rest forever. Zion was the visible source of hope for the future. Verse 15. I will richly bless her provisions. Her poor people I will satisfy with food. This is likely the immediate request of the pilgrims, that the Lord fulfill his vow to richly bless the provisions of Zion and to satisfy her poor with food. The pilgrimage would end in a festival, including feasting for many days. That feasting would be an immediate answer to their request, providing an experience of asking for blessing and receiving it, living out a miniature picture of the covenant where obedience leads to blessing. The blessings of the covenant were very tangible and openly desired and requested. Verse 16, and her priests I will clothe with salvation, and her faithful ones will sing exuberantly for joy. Verse 16 provides the same miniature picture. David had asked for the priests to be clothed with salvation, and the faithful to sing for joy. The Lord promises precisely that. The priests will be clothed or bear every indication of the Lord's salvation. They would declare his infinite ways of rescuing and blessing his people, and they would sing and celebrate the Lord's great deeds. In response, the people would sing exuberantly because of the joy of being in covenant with this God. The coming festival would be filled with stories of the Lord's deeds, and the people would respond with joy. We see how David asked, in verse 9, in accordance with what he knew the Lord wanted. And the joy in the answer is magnified for David having first asked. This is the model the song seeks for the rest of the blessing. The Lord vowed, his people faithfully sing of the vow, asking him to do what he said he would do, and their joy is magnified when he answers their requests. This is the heart of the psalm, blessing for Zion. Blessing at the feast in Zion was the immediate desire, but a far greater blessing was always kept in mind. Verse 17, there I will cause a horn to grow for David. I have put in place a lamp for my anointed one. It was on Zion where the Lord promised an eternal dynasty, a house for David that aligns with the house or temple for the Lord. He promised to cause a horn to grow, symbolizing a new king that will one day appear. The lamp represents unbroken dynastic lineage, like a lamp that continues to burn because it is ever refreshed with oil. The pilgrims seek immediate blessings, but within the context of the greatest blessing, a covenant that will last forever, centered in the person of a descendant of David. Verse 18, his enemies I will clothe with shame, but his crown will flourish on him. God's actions usually have two contrasting sides, one experience for the righteous and another for the wicked. Honor for David, for the descendant of David, means shame for his enemies. The salvation that would clothe the priests of Zion includes deliverance from enemies, which would in turn become their shame. On the other hand, the crown, or the prosperity of the kingdom, would thrive for David's descendant. This psalm seeks blessing in Zion for the pilgrimage festival, but within a context that encompasses the entirety of God's history with Zion and future plans for her. Zion is where God chose to dwell. He initiated this dwelling through David, who first conquered Jerusalem and then chose the place for the temple. David's efforts to prepare for the temple and God's ark to come to it are highlighted, with his devotion to the house of the Lord serving as the model of devotion to one's vow. The delight of the people when the ark processed to its new dwelling place is the joy of a vow fulfilled. This is the experience the pilgrims seek to relive. The Lord went to great lengths to make extravagant vows to David about a future dynasty and blessings upon Zion. The pilgrims seek the delight of seeing those vows fulfilled, some of them in the next few days of the feast. The ultimate fulfillment, however, was always more than feasting. The ultimate fulfillment was a future king who would sit on David's throne, bringing righteousness and eliminating wickedness. That was the promise of Zion. We will now read the entire psalm. A song of ascents. Remember, Lord, for David's sake, everything that he endured. He who swore to the Lord, who vowed to the mighty one of Jacob, I will not go into the dwelling place which is my house, or go up onto the bed which is my couch, or give sleep to my eyes, or slumber to my eyelids, before I find a place for the Lord, a dwelling place for the mighty one of Jacob. Look, we heard about it in Ephrathah. We found it in the fields of Jar. Let us go to his dwelling place. Let us bow down toward his footstool. Set out, Lord, to your resting place, you and your strong ark. May your priests be clothed with righteousness, and may your faithful ones sing for joy. For the sake of David, your servant, do not refuse your anointed one. The Lord swore to David in sincerity. He will not turn back from it. Someone from your offspring I will place on your throne. If your descendants keep my covenant and my laws that I will teach them, then their descendants will also forever sit on your throne. For the Lord had chosen Zion. He had desired her as his dwelling place. This is my resting place forever. Here I will dwell because I have desired her. I will richly bless her provisions. Her poor people I will satisfy with food, and her priests I will clothe with salvation, and her faithful ones will sing exuberantly for joy. There I will cause a horn to grow for David. I have put in place a lamp for my anointed one. His enemies I will clothe with shame, but his crown will flourish on him. This has been the overview video for Psalm 132. Our goal in this video is to present a single, coherent interpretation of the psalm. Our exegetical issues video discusses other scholarly views, and our poetic features video explores the distinctively poetic nature of the psalm as Hebrew poetry. Please visit us at scriptura.world to learn more. Thank you.